we have always advocated for data collection. To start with, you must have figures to work with. Even as a nation, our population is in doubt. You hear people saying, oh, we are over 200 million. So without proper data, you can't have effective planning. You can't even assess developments, not to talk about every other thing relating to the issue of development. We don't know our needs. We don't know what we have. So coming from that background, we move to the maritime sector. As it is today, if you are asked to say what is our contribution to local consumption of fish, we don't know. And that is the truth. What do we produce daily? What tonnage? The truth of the matter is that we don't know. Well, there are government agencies, it's just these overlapping function issues. If they work together, we should have data, we should have figures that we can work with. For instance, how many tonnage, fish now, are we importing? You may have record for the exports because the countries we export to are known. They are mostly EU countries. You can rely on their data and you can play games with them. Everything relating to them in our operation is technical and it's highly, highly regulated. Now, the flip side, the imports. What do we know? We know nothing. How many of the fish and fish-free products that come into the country from direct importation from our borders, the quality, where are they coming from? We don't have all that information. And when it comes to fishing, those of us who are involved in industrial fishing and who export our products, shellfish mainly, shrimps, prawns, crabs, lobsters, and we export to a regulated market, and that is to Europe. Some do America too. We have statistics. When you catch 1 kg of prawns, everybody in the markets where we export to know that this 1 kg has been caught in this environment, free of pollution, because you document all your activities. So we actually know what we are taking. We fish for today and leave enough for tomorrow. We comply with the sizes of the fishing nets. We comply with international regulations. We use the third excluded device. We do all this. It's highly scientific. So this is to know, have a data that this year in Nigeria, this quantum of products we've removed, we've harvested from the sea. And not just that, the sizes are indicated. Okay? Now, on the other side, the poachers that come in, we don't know what they take. They have nothing at stake. They don't comply to any regulation. So it becomes difficult for us to have data that we can trust and work on. We should be able to have the correct figure or something near to the correct figure. One good thing is that we maintain very good records, by our operations. It's highly technical, as I keep saying. You have the trawlers. They go to sea. They stay 45, 50 days. Every day we have a feedback, a report of what each haulage of what and what products that they've caught. We comply with the sizes. We've gone ahead, really, because we are able, with our records, to tell you that this species of fish is, the way we move is also the way the aquatic living creatures also move. So we have each company documents, not just company documentation, vessel by vessel, and we know the high season, we know the low season. And what we have been trying to advocate in the country is for us to have closed season. The animals, the fishes, everybody, I'm sure that if they could talk, they would be singing praises to God for COVID-19. So because we have dominated the planet and every activity that we need to share with all these other creatures. What some countries, serious fishing countries, that also take good care of their marine environment, what they do is that in fishing, for instance, some season of the year, they have it as closed season. What that means is that nobody is allowed to go out there to fish, and it's useful because it gives that opportunity for the growth of the marine resources. And it's also good because it gives us time. That's the time people used to dry dock their vessels, overhaul their engines, and it's a win-win situation for the creatures, marine creatures, and for the vessel owners. So that's what I think we should promote more. We don't have it yet in Nigeria. Most countries have that. And when you don't have a closed season, what are you have neighbors. When they have their own closed season, that it becomes unlawful for them to fish. They know where to go to. And it becomes free for all. So we should have it, we should enforce it, and we should also be able to police our maritime environment and keep away the poachers. The poachers are causing a lot of damage. And I also expect IMO to look into that, because we may not have the platforms, we may not have we can't have the muzzle to fight these organized criminals to come into deep waters. It costs money. We are not talking about common criminals. We are talking about organized crime. People come here, they fish, I keep shouting it, in the most irresponsible, irregular, undocumented manner. Because internationally, if you take something from that sea, you must document it. I match it with demand. If truly we are 200 million people and the fishing sector, that means all fishing activities in the country, industrial fishing, artisanal, or every fishing activity, that we are just able to provide fish for less than 30% of the people. We are failing. We need to increase production. Then how would that happen? In the whole of this country, we don't have even one tuna vessel. Tuna is fished all over the world by quota, which means we are losing our quota. And we all eat tuna, either in our sandwiches, in our salads, and what have you. If you have just one tuna vessel, you can know the employment it will attract. You know,
so why
and added, and if we just go that step further to add value, because that's one thing with us, we don't ever add value. We export everything, almost everything we produce as raw material. So some other person would make the money and use it to give employment to their people, you know. So that is very, very important. Tuna vessel is very, very expensive, you know. So I like the idea of what you are trying to promote, for investors to come together. And we have no choice, really, because things are getting out of hand. Is when you come together, either you form cooperatives as farmers or something, then you'll be able to think big and be able to compete with the so-called Western world. For me, is to look at the data first and foremost, because if you don't have it, whatever you plan, you're just wasting your time, you know. So we should start by collating data. We should start by knowing where our strength lies, you know. I'm also a member of the Maritime Trade Group of NACCIMA. So you find out that we are also hoping that African continental trade, whatever, would come into effect. Nigeria is a big market, and we do contribute a lot to the economies of the world. And I believe that it will also help us to add value to our products. So we begin to have good data. Like if I ask you now, we are all saying diversification, agriculture should really be promoted. Fine. You have all this produce at the end of a planting season. Half of it goes rot. You know, half of it ends up at a papa gridlock. You know, so there are a number of things that we need to look at. So whatever figures we are publishing will be relied upon, and I think, I don't know. We need to also be honest about it. It's not when Ghana says their own, we multiply it by 10 and say we need to feel the impact of what we're doing. We need training. For instance, we need, in most of the companies in maritime, we want to at least employ mostly Nigerians. We need to know, do we have the training schools? What are they training? Are they training what the labor markets in the subsector requires? If not, what happens? How many marine engineers do we need? Seamen, and a lot of carpenters. We need all sorts of labor, skilled and unskilled. What is available in that particular field is when you have the correct data, then you know where your needs lie. Then even the maritime schools will learn to produce what the job market, what they need. You know, it's like saying, oh, what am I doing today? I'm a lawyer, but as you can see, I am more involved in the maritime sector. We want people to specialize in certain areas in the industry. Yeah, and if I may just say something I have been saying for long, because we are talking about how do we grow whatever. In the fishing industry, it is very expensive for a new entrant. You know, we like to copy countries, but we don't like to go through doing the right things. You know, this is Nigeria. over 90% of industrial fishing companies are domiciled in Lagos, yet we don't have a fishing terminal. You know, you don't have a fishing terminal. And we've been crying out for this at a stage. The federal government dedicated a large portion of Apapa Kirikiri something. Nothing happened. You know, so these are things that we should seriously think about doing. If we talk about diversification of the economy, anybody can speak that grammar, diversification. What are we doing? Look at the maritime sector. Look at shipping. You know, look at what we have, the sea. Yet we do not have ocean-going vessels. Look at the tonnage we generate. Who is carrying it? The cargo. They are foreign vessels. Everybody, a small child knows that Nigeria lives on importation of goods. Who brings those goods in? Crude oil, our exports. Who is taking it out for us? You know, we don't add value. And that value is what you need. Otherwise, you'll be at the expense of the buyer. The buyer dictates everything. And you have the cargo. How do you grow your banking? How do you grow insurance? All these services. You know, if you have your own vessel, are we going to be looking for countries to help us train our seamen, to offer them sea time? You know, so the Nigerian shipping line is one of the things that will also help us when we are talking about diversification of the economy, training of our people, and becoming a serious maritime nation. And that's it. No two ways to it.